3 weeks after the big bugs Spectre and Meltdown were in the news, there's still a lot of confusion about how to solve the problems they create. I'm here with Jan Guldentops, Better Access in Belgium, to discuss the current situation. Jan, 3 weeks. What is happening?
Well, I consider Spectre and Meltdown as a big test for the industry. A test that separates the cheap from the goat, and the good suppliers from the bad suppliers, and shows who's really working on its security. And there are a number of reasons why. First of all, it's a new kind of exploit. One that doesn't attack the operating system, but goes for the performance optimizations in the hardware and the processors. Something we aren't used to. Something we really had to think how to patch. So that made it difficult. It also attacks us in the core of how we created the IT industry. It especially makes shared platforms, platforms in which hardware is shared by multiple virtual machines or systems, and potentially multiple customers, vulnerable. So we've been doing a lot of cloud and virtualization. This really brings serious security questions to that industry.
Yeah, I hear you saying it is a sort of a trust test for the industry. You feel that Intel is not 100% taking this seriously, or what is your feeling about this? It's now 3 weeks. They provided a patch, and then they withdraw it again, and it's like sort of a game they're playing. What is happening?
Basically, Intel is trying to save its skin, right? We have seen Intel as one of the trustful technology giants, right? We had a lot of confidence in it. They invested in security. They invested in a lot of stuff. And now that turns out not to be that true. First of all, they made a mistake in their processors. Secondly of all, their patches they brought a BIOS patch out, which they advised everybody not to run because there was a nasty reboot problem in it a couple of weeks later. So we're really losing confidence in one of the industry leaders. Right? Yeah. Their quality control wasn't that great the first time around, and now with their patches, they're not doing real quality control either.
Okay. Who is most affected by this? Are private users in danger, or is it more the cloud users or people who are running extensive tests with databases?
Well, there's a number of things we have to consider. First of all, basically, unless you're not connected to the outside world, which everybody is these days, everybody's vulnerable, right? So everybody needs to patch. But one of the big problems is that we have a performance impact, right? Intel says it's 4 to 7%. Mm-hmm. My personal experience is that it's in a lot of cases around 20%. I see figures up to 30%. That makes it a very expensive attack to patch, right? Mm-hmm. An expensive vulnerability to patch. So if you're a cloud provider, right, and you have a 20% margin on your business or a 30% margin on your business, and you lose 20% performance, there's not much more margin left. Who's going to pay for that, right? I have a cloud customer who sits on a public cloud infrastructure, right? And that cloud infrastructure loses 20% of its performance, has over-provisioned, so my customer doesn't have enough performance left, right? Okay. So what would happen? He loses performance. Is the cloud provider going to pay for that, or does he have to expand his CPU and pay more? Those are difficult questions. It's not like it used to be. Oh, there's a bug, we patch it, nothing happened. That is one of the main issues here.
Okay. Well, everyone basically is affected. Let's face it. The majority of people who have an Intel processor or a Mac or even ARM processors are involved with it. We discussed last couple of weeks. So huge crowds of people are infected with this. What should you do? Run a patch or wait, or just what is the best advice you can give in this situation?
Well, it's a bit difficult. It's choosing between the plague and the cholera, basically. My instinct as a security professional says patch as soon as possible, right? Mm-hmm. But since everybody's rushing to get patches out, and not every community, like the Linux community, has a Linus Torvalds who really does quality control, I usually advise to do a couple of tests yourself. Test your patches on limited systems, on test systems before you run them out. That's easy to do for a company. It's a bit difficult to do for an individual, but don't have blind confidence in those patches that they're going to work, that everything's going to be okay. Yeah. So test before you commit, basically.
We're talking about two bugs. We have Spectre, we have Meltdown. Which is, in your opinion, the most dangerous bug we're talking about?
If it's exploited, it doesn't matter, right? From a technical viewpoint, I think Spectre is a little worse. But in C, they basically do the same thing in a different way.
Okay.
And one of the issues I see with both bugs is if they're exploited and it's done in a intelligent, if they're used or abused, or I would say it, and the attacker does it in an intelligent way, there will be hardly any traces to see they read out the memory and stole data. Uh-huh. That's one of the big problems. It's very difficult to detect it, the bug being used. And there are proof of concepts available, officially, publicly. What you should do as an IT professional is use this to learn. Use this to get your procedures done, to have an inventory, to have a testing system set up, to have a structured procedural way of doing patches, to get all your information sources up to speed. I mean, it's basically an excuse to invest in making your security procedures and infrastructure better.
Yeah.
That's my advice.
Okay. Well, let's see what happens over the next 3 weeks.
Well, we live in interesting times.
Thank you very much. You can say that. Thank you very much for your time, yeah?
Bye.
Bye-bye.